Welcome to the Sasquatch Outpost podcast, your favorite podcast every week. And I appreciate you guys tuning in. If you have never subscribed to this podcast, please hit subscribe and hit the like button. All of that helps us in our efforts to give you the best programming we can at the Untold Radio Network. And we are excited tonight. We've got some great guests and some fun things to talk about. If you, some of you have written, first of all, I want to thank those of you who've written recently. Several of you have, and to tell me that you're watching. These are folks who were new, or at least I've never met you, and you've written to tell me how much you appreciate the podcast, which I really appreciate. That motivates me to keep doing what we're doing every week. But some of you are been asking me about a couple things. One, about the Bigfoot Adventure Weekend. Hey, thank you, Patricia. And by the way, your package for Tammy came today, so Tammy will pick that up later this week at the store. But the Bigfoot Adventure Weekend registration is now open. This is the address. Thanks, Steph. And I promise you, it will sell out within a month. And so if you're interested in being a part of it, there's only spot for 30, I think it's 35 adults and maybe 5 kids. And same price as last year. I don't have the price on top of my head, but that price includes your camping fee. We hold it at Glen Isle Resort here in Bailey, and most of the people camp. Bring your own camping gear. Some people decide to rent a cabin at Glen Isle. Thanks, Doug. I'm glad you're signed up. I'm not surprised you're already signed up, but we usually sell out very quickly, and we'll have people all summer long asking us, when can I sign up? And I'll be like, sorry, it's already sold out. So if you're interested, now is the time to sign up. And I'm not trying to do that just to push it. You really do need to sign up because we sell out very quickly. But the Bigfoot Adventure Weekend, basically we have a Thursday night extreme, we call it an extreme night out, where we take about 10 people only to an active Sasquatch area camp away from Bailey. Different place every year. And then Friday, so some people will do both the Thursday night event and the weekend, which you're welcome to do. Then Friday, everyone arrives about 1 o'clock in the afternoon, gets their campsite set up, and we take everyone out for a Friday night night hike, intro to night hikes. Saturday, we'll do some training and different things like plaster casting, and we'll come up with some new ones, new training this year. Then we take you out in the afternoon to a different place, and we take you back to that same place that night. And we usually stay out Saturday night till midnight or later. And then we come back in, and those who are still awake, we have a debrief over what happened. And it has yet to happen one year that at least one group has an encounter. And so it's a great fun, and lots of stories, lots of camaraderie with like-minded people who don't think you're nuts. So please sign up for the Bigfoot Adventure Weekend if you are interested. Jill and I will be getting our stuff up online for Rabbit Hole Adventures for the horseback trips. We're trying to figure a couple things out. We're trying to get some private land that we can do these on, because it's a lot of work to go through the Forest Service to get a permit for an outfitter. And we'll do it if we have to, but we're trying to get some private land. Either way, hopefully soon we will get our dates up there, as well as for the camping, the truck camping trips, the night hikes. And if we're going through the Forest Service, the only problem is I can put everything up, have people reserve, but if they don't give me a permit, I got to give you all your money back because I can't do those trips. And so they never let me know about the permit until late April. But by then, everybody's summer plans are already made. So that's the problem with the Forest Service. But we'll see. I'm hoping we can come up with some private land that we can do this on. But that will be on my website, sasquatchoutpost.com, under Rabbit Hole Adventures. It's a tab on our website. Okay, I think that's all that kind of stuff. So I'm going to tell you about our camping at Wellington Lake 2 nights ago. But before I do that, I don't know how many of you heard about the event that happened at New Year's at the Miami Mall. Something bizarre happened. And I'm going to show you a video in a second that Steph's going to put up to show you how many police responded to this event. There were stories that went out initially that there was a 8 to 10 foot tall shadow alien or something walking around the mall. They have video of people running, screaming away. Everybody's got one of these. But there were no videos that came out. Maybe one or two videos. And there were hundreds of people running away from whatever they were running away from. Then the cops came out with the story that, it was kids fighting each other with fireworks. And I'm like, all right, 100 cop cars respond to kids fighting each other with fireworks. You got to come up with a better story than that to convince me that that's what actually happened. Now, I don't know what happened, but I guarantee you it was not kids fighting. There may have been half a dozen cars that would respond to that, but not what you're going to see in a second. So I'm going to have Steph show this video, a part of it. And then look how many.
Esta es una llamada a todas las unidades de la ciudad de Miami.
I'll bet you there's 80 maybe cop cars, maybe more. Let's mute the rest of that, Steph. But you can see this is not a fight. This isn't even a gang fight that would draw that many cops. And they don't show it in this shot, but it shows people just running away from something. They do have one shot that I don't have here. Yeah, we can drop it. They do have one shot of something from above, from a helicopter, walking, that they claim in this video, based on where it was walking in the shadow, was 8 to 10 feet tall. I don't know. One of these days we'll find out what actually happened that night in Miami. But what I found interesting about this story, there was a sale at the donut shop. Yeah. What I find interesting is that the first stories that came out, I usually believe the first stories before the second and third story. It's like when someone tells you something happened and then they change their story later, as I've heard it said, fired shots, I agree, but not that many cars. I don't think so. But there was no report of fired shots in that story. But before the first story, before people rearrange the furniture, so to speak. So somebody tells a story, then they rearrange the furniture and they tell the story again, but now it's not the same story because they realized there was something in their first story that they shouldn't have said. So the first stories that came out talked about a giant or an alien or something. Who knows? But if any of you get more stories or more feedback on this, and I've been trying to see what else is coming out, there's not a whole lot, write me and let me know, because I'm very curious about this event, what really happened. But kids fighting with fireworks, I don't think so. Something in me just says, no, that's not the real story. So, okay, enough said about current events. So Wayne and Tony and I went down to Wellington Lake 2 nights ago. And Tony has this outfitter tent. It's 14 by 16 feet, and it's got a wood heater, wood stove. And there was a lot of snow on the ground already. And Wellington Lake didn't want us to drive up to this campsite. So we were trying to get to campsite number 14 because all summer long, people were having Bigfoot encounters at campsite 14. But that was about 75 to 80 yards from where we were told we had to. The date, just a second, put John's comment up there. The date, I think, was New Year's. New Year's or right around New Year's. So anything you can get, John, would be great. But Tony brought a sled that you use for taking stuff out on a lake for snow fishing, ice fishing. So we did like 10 trips with this sled, slogging up this. It was slightly uphill to this campsite. We were exhausted. And two old men, me and Wayne, and Tony's not as old as us, but he was worn out too. And we never, Site 14 was just up another hill. And I said to the guys, look, Sasquatch is going to come to Site 13 as well as he's going to come to Site 14. And it's right next door. And we don't have to walk up that last hill. So, and we set up the tent over a picnic bench. It's that big. So we could put all of our junk on the picnic bench. Anyway, we got all set up, and right after dark, Tony and I took a walk up the road. So there we were camped next to the road. They call it the mountain road. There's campsites along the mountain road, and there's campsites along the lake. Yeah, my knee still hurts from that trip 2 days ago, dragging that sled back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. But so Tony and I, after dark, Wayne has a new thermal imager that he bought. It's really good quality. It's a FLIR. It's a FLIR imager like I've got, but his is better and has longer distance for viewing the therm. You could look right up to the top of Castle Mountain and see the peaks. It was really cool. So Wayne, if you would sometime while I'm telling this story, put the model number on the screen. Anyone who's interested in buying a good thermal for about $600, this one's good. So anyway, we take Wayne's thermal, we walk up the road away from camp. You would look back at the tent and it would be bright white and red, which is how he had it set up. You can set it up for any color to be hot, any spectrum you want. But we got up there a ways, and I'm looking away from our camp into the dark, and we see this. So let's put up the Wellington. So you can see what looks like it was two white objects. Now, I don't know of anything that would have heat that would be like that where we were looking. And so I say to Tony, look right between those two trees. So I give him the therm. He looks, and he can't see anything. So I look again. I take a few pictures. So let's show the next one. This is a kind of a zoomed in. And he can't see it. I see it. I take several shots. I think there's one more. And it's the same object. I just was taking it from a little bit different angle. So Tony goes, hey, you want to walk closer to it? I said, yeah, man, let's do it. So we walk closer, maybe 20 yards, and I look again, and it's not there. I can't see it anywhere. And I'm back and forth sideways. It's not there. So that tells me whatever it was moved away. And was it a Sasquatch? I can't say that for sure, but it was two bright white lights. And what will a thermal pick up? I suppose if that was eyes and the eyes were warm or hot, it's going to show them. So I don't know, but it was Yeah, site 14 is the furthest back on that side of Wellington Lake. But there's other sites. 13 and 15 are right there. I mean, they're not that far away. So anyway, uneventful night. It was quiet. It was snowing all night long, and we packed up. We all woke up about 7. We packed up and took off. But you have to get out there, or you're never going to have anything happen. And so it's just a question of what are you willing to do? How far are you willing to go before you see something? And I tell you, if you guys do this enough, I guarantee you're going to have an encounter sooner or later. So that being said, I'm not going to waste any more time. I want to bring my first guest in now. I've had Jim Hamilton on before, and it was for the same thing. It was for tracks that Jim had found on his property, and he found some new tracks. And so for those who weren't listening or watching the first time Jim was on, let's bring Jim in, Steph. And hey, Jim.
Hey, Jim, how are you?
I'm great. Welcome back again.
Well, thank you.
I appreciate you reaching out to me and showing me the photos of the tracks you'd found. I think, to me, it was interesting enough to have Jim come back on. And how long ago were you on? It must have been.
We were on in February.
February.
No, wait, no. We had the incident in February. We were on in October for your show.
October. Okay.
Yeah.
So some of you may remember Jim, but let's put up the photos that Jim sent me. Now, I'm putting these up for you guys to give your opinion as well. So tell us the story of these tracks, Jim, and then we'll show the photos as we go.
Well, it seems to me, and I gotta let everybody know I'm not an expert on any of this stuff. So please give your comments. Tell us what you think, because
Jim's not claiming this is Bigfoot.
Mystery here. These are the smaller prints that I call a juvenile Bigfoot. And there's another set of prints that are like an adult Bigfoot, but there's certain things that seem to fit and certain things that don't seem to fit the typical MO of a Sasquatch.
Go to the next slide, Steph, because it's hard to see, but heel to heel, these were like 25 inches, which isn't very long for a Sasquatch.
Right.
25-inch stride.
That is one of the mysteries, because not just the juvenile, but the adult had short strides.
Yeah.
Both of them did. And maybe the adult was walking was shorter strides so the juvenile could keep up. I don't know. These pictures you're looking at right here don't seem to add up very well either. It seem to be sidestepping.
Yeah.
And typically when you sidestep, you're on a hill and you're going up a steep hill. Well, this is pretty flat, so that doesn't work either. But why would a Sasquatch be sidestepping?
Yeah. On flat ground, virtually flat ground.
Virtually flat ground.
Let's go back one real quick, Steph.
Right. Yeah.
Go back one more. So that footprint about a foot long. Is that what I'm looking at?
Yeah, that's of what I call the juvenile.
Okay. So 12 inches. Yeah, that's about one of our footprints if you have a large foot. Okay, go back up where he was talking about the sidestepping. Sorry about that. Yeah.
Right. So if anybody has a clue as to why these prints like this, and this is, I think, the adult, what I call the adult.
But they're real close. I mean, it's like step. I mean,
right.
It's really strange.
And there was another place where they did that up right near my cabin, and not sure why they're doing that. Now, this is another mystery. You can see 3 distinct steps, set of footprints, left, middle, and one way on the right side. And they're dragging something.
Yeah.
And they dragged it for maybe a half a mile. And then
you followed the tracks how far? You said 2 miles?
About 2 miles, yeah.
That's a long track line.
And so what are they what are they dragging? I thought that maybe they killed a deer. I don't even know what Bigfoot eats, but I guess they can eat a deer. So I thought maybe they had to kill and they were dragging it, or dragging two of them maybe.
I mean, this comment about trying to hide the tracks, could those have been something dragging a tree branch behind it? Do you think?
Maybe.
Okay.
I don't know.
Yeah.
So, all right. Now this is for the comparison shot. The footprint on the left is mine. I'm a number 10 and a half size foot in a snow boot on the left. And that's the print of the adult on the right.
So someone pulling a sled. So if that's a person, that's a humongous footprint. It seems to be too small to be a snowshoe compared to the size of his foot. Snowshoes are generally, mine are much bigger than my boot.
Right.
So, and it looks like, what do you think, Jim? It looks like you can see toe marks maybe at the front end of that.
Yeah, that's not the best photo we have for the toe marks. There are other photos that show them better. I just wanted to get a comparison, of who has a footprint that large, and you can see the footprint behind it. He's taking baby steps.
Huh. Yeah.
Why baby steps?
Yeah,
and,
I've never seen tracks that were what I would believe was a footprint that close.
And the other thing is, there's only about 3 or 4 inches of snow here.
If
And
that,
you don't snowshoe in 3 and 4 inches
No.
of snow. So it doesn't make any sense for a snowshoe.
Was that deeper than your print?
I think so. Yeah.
Okay. The print up front, I think, is just in shallower snow. That's why it looks different.
Could be.
The one in front of that one. But, here's what was interesting to me about these photos. The first one really seemed to show toes, that one.
Right.
And Sasquatch's toes can be down in a line like this sometimes. But the fact that they went for 2 miles, if it's a person. So I asked you a couple questions. Okay. Where was this land that you were following these tracks into, and why would somebody walk 2 miles into it? What did you tell me?
Well, the print started at our cabin. I don't go out looking for Bigfoot prints. But now that we had the incident last February, when I'm on the property, I'm aware now, and I'm looking, and
Okay.
I came across these. They went across the southern part of my land. I got about 5 acres, and it went through a gate into a ranch of 300 acres, and that's where I followed them. There's not much down there. There's a couple of cabins. And they're not used in the wintertime. Nobody goes down there in the winter. And yeah, I don't know. They didn't come back. They didn't turn around and come back. They just kept going till I got to a point where the snow was lesser and lesser, and I just lost the tracks.
This comment about them stalking. Yeah, I agree with that. However, 2 miles is a long stalk. I mean, plus they stayed with the road, right? They followed the road the whole way.
Yeah, they were on the road the whole way.
Okay.
There were some photos where they looked like they stopped and they walked around, in different directions, but then they continued on again.
Yeah, this is a mystery, and I put it up here just because you guys are researchers with me in all of this. And so I think what you think is interesting to me. So I appreciate your comments. Yeah, the sidestepping could be playing, who knows? But it's I don't know. I just think it's, we found tracks twice now on his property that could be a Sasquatch. The earlier ones went between, what was it, your tractor and your truck or something?
Yeah, basically. I was
Started
on
at one.
when I saw, that's the first time I saw anything like that. And I
Yeah.
was swapping out for my forklift attachment and saw the tracks. I go, what made these? These are crazy. And the funny thing about those, they fit the model better. The stride was right. The size of the footprint was right. But there was no start and no finish.
Right.
It's like they beamed down, walked a little
Right.
bit, and beamed up. So that was the mystery too.
Yeah. Who knows? But to me, it's always worth it to put something up there that is intriguing to me, even if I don't know what it is necessarily. And neither Jim nor I are claiming these are Sasquatch tracks. We're just saying they could be, or it could be something else completely. So
yeah, I'll throw out there, I've never seen a Sasquatch.
Yeah.
So.
No, fair enough. That's a fair remark. But Jim, keep them coming, man. I appreciate you sending me these things. And anybody else, if you have something that you find or something interesting on your property, and I've started asking people to go through our museum again. I used to do this. I got too many skeptical responses to it, but I'm going to try it again, of people who have an encounter to write it down, report on it, and turn it in at the front desk. But anyway, Jim, I appreciate you coming back on, and thank you for the photos.
Thank you for having me. Have a great night. I'm going to stay on and listen to our next guest.
You'll want to listen. So my next guest, I met in the store and had her fill one of those forms out. She told me this story, and I said, okay, I've got this podcast. I've got to have you tell your story. So Jamie Blue is a great sport. So let's bring Jamie in. Hey, Jamie.
Hi.
Now, Jamie's in Denver tonight, but she's got a cabin out in South Park, not far from Jefferson, at a place called Michigan Hill.
That's right.
And people that have a Jefferson address, a lot of them live on Michigan Hill. Mm-hmm. But before we get into the things that you've had happen, I want you to tell where you're from and where you're born, because I think it's a great story. And I'll let you tell this before we put this first photo up, but it's a great photo.
Sure. So I was born and raised in Evergreen, Colorado, in Foxton Valley. I was born in a small cabin, a dry cabin, and I was potty trained in an outhouse. And my brothers and I spent most of our young years, like most kids at that time, outside and having fun with sticks and rocks and enjoying life.
So you were born in the cabin?
So at my midwife's house.
Okay. Well,
but yes.
Not in the clinic, not in a hospital.
Right.
Okay.
Exactly.
It was a home birth. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So she sent me this picture of her and her brother, which is a classic picture. I love it. So that's great.
I know. So I used to wear that purse as more of like a feeding trough, and I would eat
that's
cookies
hilarious
in there. My mom used to yell at us not to feed all the cookies to the burros, but that's what I kept in there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, Jamie, I think she is a mountain girl. She's got her handmade walking stick there, and he's got a walking stick too, I guess.
Yeah, that's my big brother.
What's his name?
His name is Gabe.
Gabe. Okay.
Yeah.
So born and raised in Colorado, in the mountains,
Mm-hmm.
and what were you telling me about the double outhouse?
Oh, sure. So there's this cute little mercantile down the road. I think it's still there, although it may not be called the same thing. It was called Green's Mercantile back in the day. and they had a double hole outhouse out back, and it was a real big deal for
The
my
height of luxury, right?
Yes, we would get so excited to use to go potty in the double hole outhouse. And it has followed me through life. My entire bathroom has pictures of outhouses that I found abandoned in the mountains.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's so cool. So, Jamie and her fiance, what's your fiance's name again?
His name is Troy.
Troy.
Mm-hmm.
Jamie and Troy have a house they're remodeling in Denver, and they have this cabin. Now look at this area. I mean, who would not want a cabin at this location on Michigan Hill? I mean, it's just gorgeous. It's just gorgeous.
Pretty dreamy.
Yes. And so this is the environment for the stories that she's going to tell us. But before she does that, I want to tell you about, just go to the next slide. So about 2 miles as the crow flies from Jamie's house is this campground. This is the Michigan Creek Campground. And way back, like 2014 or 15, one of the earliest stories I had was a fellow who worked at the time at the Conifer post office, had a long gray beard, and he and his grandson, I believe, went camping at Michigan Creek Campground. It's a big campground, and they were the only ones there. All right. So he said that they were camped. His truck was parked maybe 30 yards away from where their tent was. And about midnight, he hears this sound outside the tent, and it was a metal buckling, dun, dun, like happens when if you were to lean against the door of your vehicle with your weight, and it will buckle in and come back out. That's what he heard. So he thought, we're the only ones out here. What's going on? So he had a million candle power flashlight, and he unzips the tent, shines the flashlight towards his truck. About 10 feet beyond his truck is this humongous Sasquatch standing there staring him in the face. Just the flashlight straight on him, staring at him. He said, if I had a rifle, I could have shot him in the chest. He was just standing there, totally unafraid, just looking at us. And I said, well, how tall was he? He said, I don't know. At least 8 feet tall, maybe taller. And he said, as they watched, the Sasquatch watches them, turns, and just kind of glides away from them into the woods. He said, it's not like how we walk where, up and down. He said it just glided into the woods. And I remember asking him, so how would you guys sleep that night? He goes, sleep? What are you talking about? But they didn't get in their truck and leave either. And so they weren't afraid enough to leave. And so in the morning, they went out and looked at the truck. The window was open, maybe 5-6 inches. And he said it smelled like a wet dog inside the truck. And they had some snacks or something on the seat. So this thing had been obviously reaching in there to get the snacks. And it had wiped its arm on the hood of the truck, he said, because you could see the hair marks where the dew had been wiped away by its arm. All right. So that's the context. And this is very near Georgia Pass. This is actually the road, goes past this campground, goes up Georgia Pass. All right. Yeah, I'm like you. I would have been back the next day. No, I mean, for a lot of us to have an encounter like that is a lifelong, dream. So interestingly, I was camping with Wayne at Jefferson Lake. So let's go. I want to show the context here of what we're talking about. So this is the area where I'm not going to show you her specific house because that's not important, her address or anything. But this is where Jamie's house and Troy's house is, this area. And then the next one shows from the campground, Michigan Creek campground, straight line to their house is 2 miles. I mean, it's right next door. As far as Sasquatch goes, it's right next door. So, and then Jefferson Lake is not far from her house either. And gorgeous lake. If you guys want to see a incredibly beautiful mountain lake, Jefferson Lake is it. I mean, it's just drop dead gorgeous. But we've had tons of sightings at Jefferson Lake and around the lake. And so Wayne and I were camping at Jefferson Lake in one of the campgrounds down below. I couldn't sleep. I had restless legs. About 3 a.m. I got up, got in my truck, and just started driving in the middle of the night. And I drive past where Jamie's house is and start to go up Georgia Pass. And this never happens to me. I get part of the way up that road, and I get this overwhelming sense, stop, turn around, and go back. Don't go up this road any farther. I didn't know why. I didn't know what was going on, but I've learned to listen to those impulses. So I stopped, turned around, and eventually got back to the campground. So the next shot, I think, shows where her house is compared to, so you can see Jefferson Lake on this end, and at the far end is where Jamie's cabin is. So the context is lots of Bigfoot activity out here, lots. So Jamie was at the store and starts telling me some stories. So I'm just going to let you tell them, as you told me, some things that have happened to you out there and other places, and we'll just go from there.
Okay. So
her house, the next shot, I think, is a drone shot. There we go.
Yeah. Yeah. So you can kind of see where the patio is off of, like, where the deck is off of the house. If you can see where the red truck is just to the left of that, that's the house. And then on the far side, you can see sort of like a wonky outline, but that's the patio, like the outdoor deck. There's a door that comes straight out onto that deck. And there's some trees just outside of that fence line. Now that deck is up on poles, and we keep like firewood and stuff underneath there. So, and it's not like super tall, but I definitely have to like crouch down to get in there. It's got to be like 4, maybe 4.5 feet tall under there. So that tells you how high up the deck sits. And then the trees beyond it are huge. And it was late one night, and I don't know if you can see them. My dog. I take him up there whenever I go, and he wanted to go outside, and it was dark outside. And this was like, I want to say February of last year. And I opened the back door, and he usually just goes outside and, goes off the deck, and then he runs around and he uses the restroom or chases a bunny or whatever it is. And he took like 3 steps out and just stood completely still, frozen, staring straight ahead. And we do get just a gratuitous amount of moose and elk and all sorts of wildlife in the area. So I thought maybe there was like a moose out there or something like that. So like I adjust my eyes kind of out and down to like the areas where I've seen moose and elk, like very close to the house. And I couldn't make anything out. And he still like wasn't moving. So I kind of raised my head and I looked straight out, and just past the deck, right to the left side of the tree, was 2 red eyes. And as soon as like our gazes sort of met, it sidestepped and stood right behind the tree.
So it was definitely something. I mean, it was alive because it moved.
It moved, and it had red eyes, and where the knot is on the tree, where like I kind of gauge like where I was looking in that moment, had to have been between about 12 and 15 feet.
Oh my goodness.
Like it was like from the ground.
From the ground. Okay.
From the ground. So it was tall.
Yeah. Really tall.
A lot taller than any like moose or anything.
Oh,
and
yeah.
as like as close to the patio as it was, the sizes didn't like jive in my head. I was like, this is weird. That thing is huge. I don't know what that is.
And were you shining a flashlight out there at the time?
No,
No. Okay. So it wasn't reflecting a flashlight. Did it look like it was a reflection, or did it look like it was glowing?
Looked like it was glowing.
Okay.
Like it was like
Wow.
Yeah, I don't I don't really know. But yeah, it stepped like I felt like when our eyes caught each other, like I felt like it was like, ooh, and like stepped to the side and stood behind the tree. My dog wouldn't go out. He turned around and wanted back in, so I went back in with him.
Okay.
And that was that.
Wow. So could you tell any idea how far apart those eyes were?
Oh, if that would be tough. If I could get a ladder and stand up on the tree and sort of measure out, I could probably tell you something a little
Right.
bit more accurate.
But you're saying the knot was at least 12 feet up?
At least.
At
Yeah.
least. Wow. That's amazing.
And there's some soil erosion at the bottom.
Okay.
So, it kind of like, it dips down and comes up in certain areas. So it could have been stepped up or down or by like a foot or so.
But again, I like this story because I'm convinced that their eyes glow in the dark, and red is one of the colors that you'll see. Jill has them with red eyes on her property in Guffey. I've seen red in the woods. I've seen white. I've seen gold, but radioactivity. I don't know. I hate to think it's radioactivity because they've been really close to me a lot of times. I should keep a Geiger counter with me, and if it starts going kick, 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 then I know a Bigfoot's near me. But that's exciting. I mean, that tells me they're right on your property. I mean,
yeah,
right
yeah. I don't have any doubt that there's life on this property. I feel like I'm just a guest there.
Okay.
There's plenty going on there. What it all is, I'm not sure. We do have a few game trail cams set up. We've seen a lot of bobcat this year, which is kind of new. I hadn't seen a ton of those before. Loads of coyote in the area. I finally saw a coyote in person, probably 20 yards. So like the closest I've ever seen one in that area just last week. So there's, tons and tons and tons of wildlife out there. So as far as like a bit of a dinner site.
Yeah, for sure.
Mm-hmm,
but that was not a moose. That was not an elk. Their eyes don't glow in the dark.
Well, and it would have been
not an owl.
He would have had to have been standing on the patio for his eyes to be there,
that high,
or like climbed up on the tree, or you know what I mean. It was a weird height for that.
Raccoons and alligators have red eye reflection, but not red eye glow. So
it definitely like sidestepped, if that makes sense.
Okay. Yeah.
There was it was here, and then it was.
And it wasn't like it was climbing the tree because it was next to the tree.
Right.
To start off with. Okay.
Right. Yeah. It was very strange.
So that was the first thing you told me about. Then you told me about something else that happened on Georgia Pass.
There is a campsite over there. It's a bit primitive, but there's a ridge that goes up behind it. And then there's some beaver ponds and things that sort of skirt alongside of it. And if you follow them beyond the ridge and kind of skirt around the other way, they sort of link up to the other side of the campgrounds.
Okay.
I love taking my dog over there. He loves to swim. He loves chasing things. And we like to hike up to the top of the ridge and then hike along the ridge and then come down, and he plays in the beaver ponds. But kind of without fail, we almost always hear noises over there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Like what? Like what kind of noises?
So mostly it sounds like wood banging.
Okay.
Yeah, like knocking, or like two pieces of wood sort of hitting each other with some pretty decent force.
Okay.
We did hear some metal banging when we
you gotta tell this story because it's a big part of the experience. So
it's so embarrassing.
Hey, I've had the same thing happen, so I can relate.
So we went snowmobiling up on the pass. I know if anybody goes up there, they all know it's wonderful. It's great. But we were novice, and it was an older snowmobile, and it was quite heavy. And we decided on the last sort of turn before you get to the top to cut through the field, and the snowmobile sunk down in the ravine, and we spent probably about 4 hours trying to dig it out. And we came very prepared. We brought shovels and ropes and all the things, but it was very easily chest deep in most places out there.
That's deep.
It was very deep snow, and we did not have any luck getting it out. So at about 4:00, we decided it was time to head down because it was starting to get dark, and dangers rise and temperatures go down and all that fun stuff. So we're hiking down this mountain, and it was absolutely beautiful. It was just breathtaking. The moon was out. It was just gray and navy blues and purples for as far as the eye can see, just mountain ranges with stars, and snow was fluttering. It was absolutely amazing. And we come around that last curve right where those primitive campsites are, where I take my dog to go hiking quite often. And we heard it sounded almost like two trash can lids, like metal trash can lids, like banging.
Now, for context, you've got deep, deep snow.
Yes.
So for someone to be camping, a person to be camping there is not possible.
Not that time of year. In fact, when we had gotten back to our vehicle, there was nobody else around. And I think we only encountered 2 other snowmobiles that entire day. So they were long gone by the time we got into the bottom. And it is that time of year where, you would have to, it'd almost be like igloo camping. You would need to dig, because even at the base of the mountain, in the nice areas where it was like a little bit more maintained, it was still knee deep.
Yeah. Yeah. Only nuts like me go camping in the winter in the snow. And I wouldn't go in knee deep snow. It's just too hard to dig out a place for a tent or get a vehicle in there. So it's bizarre that you're hearing metallic clanging back in there.
Yeah. And I have to say that was probably the latest I've been out in that area time-wise in the day. Usually when I go, it's probably like 2, 3, 4 o'clock in the afternoon at the latest with my dog, if not earlier. And that's when I hear more like wood noises. But that night was definitely metallic. It was and like kind of a bit more aggressive.
Well, I wish I'd heard your story before the night I went driving up, because I'll bet you I turned around right about where you heard that, because I would have at least stopped longer and rolled my windows down and listened to see if I heard anything. Because if you've heard it more than once, for some reason, that's a spot that they are marking or something.
And it makes sense. It's a great location. They've got water. They've got, mountains. They've got, there's a lot going on back there. It's great fishing for those who fish.
Yeah. But did it alarm you guys when you heard that clanging? And did Troy hear it too?
Troy definitely heard it. Okay. We both heard it together.
Okay.
It did sound a bit aggressive. So that was a little bit like edgy. But I think the both of us, we didn't feel intimidated or scared.
It wasn't like you started running or.
God, we had like hardly any.
Yeah.
We were so tired. It took us like almost 4 hours to get down that mountain.
Oh my goodness! And normally
like 7 miles, and that it was a lot.
Yeah. How much of that was in the dark?
Most of it.
Most of it.
I think maybe the first hour was like dusky.
Okay. Mm-hmm. So that comment about portal opening, that we can laugh at that, but I've heard if you watched Dave Paulides' movie The Hunted, there was one story about a hunter who disappeared, and the only thing that anyone remembered was a metallic sound like a giant trap closing. And whether it was related to his disappearance or not, that's the only thing anyone heard. And did it sound like a car door slam or different?
It sounded more
like
metallic-y.
Garbage can lids.
Yeah. It was very like open and loud sounding, not like compartmentalized.
So I've heard that before when Jason, Frank, and I were camped. I tried to get this file where I could have you guys listen to ask you if it sounded the same, but we were we had been camping. It was winter camping. It was actually May, but it snowed while we were up there, and there was no one else camped near us. And we were done with the weekend. We'd had a lot happen that weekend. We'll answer this question, John, in a second. We'd had a lot happen that
Thanks,
weekend.
John.
Yeah, it took a while. Let's say it didn't happen that night. But they went back. You went back the next day with some other guys, right?
Yeah, we did go back. We didn't get the snowmobile out for about a week. We had to buy another snowmobile to get the first snowmobile out because it was the only thing that could get up there.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's how you end up with 2 snowmobiles.
Well, that's how you learn where to go and where not to go on a snowmobile. So
yes, very quickly.
yes. So we were getting ready to break camp. We were having breakfast right before we broke camp, and we heard 2 voices just over the ridge where we couldn't see. 2 voices, like, and there was a male and a female voice, like they were arguing, and then a scream. And we all heard it. Everyone stopped. I mean, literally, it was like, stop with your fork halfway to your mouth. And we said, did you guys hear that? Everybody said, yeah. And then it did it again louder. No, scream. And we're like, okay, that's not people because there's no people out here with us. So I took my recorder, went over there and put it maybe 30 yards closer to where the sounds were. And we had to get on with breaking camp. So while we were breaking camp, we recorded all kind of stuff that I didn't hear. None of us heard while we were breaking camp. And twice there were a bunch of tree knocks, bam, wood on wood, bam, bam. But then there were these 2 big clang. And I'm like, what was that? And we didn't hear it, but it was really loud and definitely metallic. Clang again. And I'm like, okay, we weren't doing anything with metal. I have no idea what that noise was or where it came from. So remind me next time I see you to find that recording and play it for you guys and ask you if that's what you heard. I'm very curious to see.
Yeah, I'd be curious. I don't know that I've ever heard anything quite like that.
And especially where you are.
Yeah.
Out in the middle of nowhere going up to Georgia Pass. I mean, yeah, with thigh deep, waist deep snow. There's just no way. So yeah, bizarre.
It was.
So tell us about this picture.
Somebody had asked if that last picture had tree structures, and yes, those are
that was on your property, right?
Yeah, those are probably, I don't know, 30 yards from the back door. Okay. And confession. I probably shouldn't do this, but whenever I get to the cabin, the first thing is I walk the perimeter of the property with my dog, and a lot of people, like, they'll bring bird seed and they'll throw bird seed and the birds come out and all this stuff. I usually take a bag of like Cheetos or Ruffles and I walk around with my bag of Ruffles or my Cheetos and I'm eating them. We walk around, and when I get to this spot, I always leave Cheetos or chips.
Always there.
Yeah.
Okay, interesting.
I just feel like it's the nice thing to do. I mean, what if whatever put that there likes chips?
Well, at least it's nice that you are being nice to them. And, you know, that goes a long way with Sasquatch. Intention, I'm convinced intention goes a tremendous way. So,
yeah, I think so too.
So, yeah, so that's an interesting structure. And you said where the way they were leaning and how they were at the top was just not natural.
Yeah, the top is the part that makes the hairs on my arms stand up a little bit. It's
okay.
Because it kind of, like, if you look at it, you're like, oh, these are old. They could have fallen. But the way the tops are sort of like intertwined, it's definitely placed that way.
Okay. And then the next one looks like a track.
Yeah.
Small one.
Yeah, you know, it was really curious. I was out hiking with some of my girlfriends, and we had gotten to a part in the trail where there were some switchbacks down the side of this mountain. And halfway down one of them, I found this it looks like a footprint, kind
It
of.
does. It does.
Um,
Well, the toes definitely look like a footprint.
Right. And you can kind of see like the sneaker prints around it.
Yeah.
And so what got me is to me, it looked like toes, but also I was like a little bit curious because it was so deep. And it went the wrong way.
Huh.
So like if you're zigzagging down the path, you would expect the footprints to sort of follow the zigzag. This went straight down the mountain this way.
Okay.
And it was like it's like whatever landed there hit pretty hard and like used it to launch off down to the next portion of the trail.
Now, the only thing that leaves toes like this, toe marks like this, without claw marks on the end, because dogs leave paw prints with claw marks, or bears, would be a lion. But the alignment of those toes, I don't think is like a lion, because they're all the same distance. I mean, they're all parallel to each other. And so, did you see 3? I can see 3 for sure. Was there a 4th that you could pick out or not?
I can't tell. There's a bit like a divot kind of there.
Okay. Like somebody else stepped on that track
Or
before
like
you found
maybe
it.
the divot was there beforehand, or like maybe
Maybe.
there was a rock there or something.
Yeah. I agree. It's not a feline. So, but our hand, that's, it's maybe 8 inches, 9 inches long. If it is a Sasquatch, it's probably a juvenile, but great track. I mean, to find something with toe imprints that clear is really not that common. So,
Oh, my gal pals and I thought it was awesome.
how far from your house? Where were you hiking?
This was at Lair of the Bear.
Lair of the Bear. Okay.
Mm-hmm. So this was like a different area.
Kittredge.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Interesting. And that's a steep path going down.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah. And it was like whatever that was like, going straight down the mountain instead of following the switchbacks, because the footprints are
one of our good friends, Barbara, she loves to go to Lair of the Bear, and she's had lots of things happen at Lair of the Bear.
That place
things
is
that she's
beautiful.
seen. And so I don't have any doubt that Squatch are there. But yeah, I mean, great track. Do we have any other? No, that looks like that's the last slide there. One of these days, Jamie, I need to introduce you to Jill. You two have the same energy when you talk and just kind of zeal for life. And I know Jill's on here tonight. So I'm going to get the two of you together one way or the other.
I would
it will be a party. I guarantee it will be a party.
Oh, she's my soul sister.
Oh, she is. She is. So it's same energy, same enthusiasm for life. And so, yeah, I'm that's going to have to happen one of these days. So
if you have one more minute, can I ask you about
absolutely. We got time.
So that FLIR.
Yes.
I have a very similar FLIR.
Do you? Okay.
Yes. And it's quite interesting because when I stand out on that same patio and I look down over the valley that comes right out over there, and there's cows out there sometimes. Have you been up there when there's cows out in that pasture?
Yeah.
Okay.
I've seen cows out there.
So I'm standing out there. It's late in the night. I got this FLIR for my birthday. I think it's the funnest thing on the planet. And I'm, looking out there and I don't see anything. I put my FLIR down. I see 3 white dots, very similar to your 2 white dots.
Okay.
Out over that pasture. Lift my FLIR up. Nothing's there. Put it down. 3 dots. Put it up.
And
nothing's
do they
there.
move at all?
No, they just sort of stayed there.
Yeah. Mysteries, because, the FLIR is picking up heat. That's where the images come from. So, and I assume, what do you have yours set for? Where white is hot or
I think
red is hot?
The first setting is, I think it is white. I think it's like a white and black, maybe a touch of red to it. And then you can adjust the colors.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, you can make almost any color be hot, but most people tend to keep it on the white, red, hot. Because it's the clearest. I mean, it stands out against the forest or whatever. But yeah, I don't know, Jamie. There's so much about Sasquatch I don't know, but what I do know is they're there. They live near you, and Earlier on, let's go back to those comments about the I think it was the tympanic membrane. I can't remember exactly, that reflects red. Our eyes don't reflect, and ape eyes don't reflect, because we don't have that membrane in the back in our retina that reflects back. Tympanic membrane. But many mammals do. Raccoons do. Dogs, cats, deer, Sasquatch. Sasquatch, I think, could reflect as well as emit, but my experience is always I glow because I never have any lights on at night. And so, but there's a guy I've been trying to get on the show. I don't know if he's watching tonight. I won't share his name at this point. He's had some encounters, and I'm just going to tell one part of one story that he told me, but he's up in Canada, cabin way out in the woods. This is years ago. And 2 Sasquatch came to the cabin during the night and stood outside the big plate glass window where his bed was next to, a male and a female. The male was huge. He was so tall that he had to duck down to look under the eaves of the building to look at him in the room. And he said his head was like 2 feet in diameter. And so this male Sasquatch bent down and was staring at him. And this guy stared back, and apparently the Sasquatch didn't like that. And he kind of made a grimace. And then, this is the bizarre part, can't explain it. He said he rolled his eyes back in his head, and as he rolled his eyes back, at the bottom of his eyes, light came out like he had a 20-watt bulb inside his head. As he rolled his eyes back, this light came out, and then he was hit with this energy wave that knocked him back on the bed and just knocked him out virtually. And so that's the only person I've ever heard that saw something like what I've seen up close. I mean, feet away, face to face. And in this case, the Sasquatch rolled his eyes back. I don't know if that's what always happens. I believe this guy. He's very convincing. Has no reason to lie to me about this. I mean, if you're going to make up a story, that's a really weird one to make up. And so I'm convinced that, like you saw, Jamie, usually I see the bright red, white, or gold eyes. I see them blink sometimes. I'll see their head turn away and turn back. But they have this ability. I don't know how they do it. I don't know that science will ever figure this out, because we have to have a Sasquatch in hand, alive, to figure this out. But I'm hoping you're going to have more experiences, Jamie, so you can get on the show again and tell us the next thing that happens at your cabin.
I'll be by.
Yes, I agree. And I appreciate that very much. And I appreciate you coming on the show tonight. And not everyone wants to tell their story. And I understand some people are nervous maybe because they have a certain kind of job that they don't want people knowing that they're talking about Sasquatch. That's getting less and less. That stigma is getting less and less, but it's still there for some people. So it means a lot to me anytime anyone will come on the show. Jim, yourself, any of my guests. So thank you very much for coming
anytime. And thanks for having such an awesome shop. It's one of my favorite places.
Well, thank you. I love hearing that. And I'm hoping that as we start, I mean, winter is always the slowest time for us because there's so much snow. It's hard to get out. So the guests I have on, got some great guests coming up. You're going to really enjoy these guests. But if any of you have someone you'd like to be on the show, if you would like to be on the show because you have a good story, let me know. Write to us at the store, info@sasquatchoutpost.com, or you can write to me personally at mountaingym18@gmail.com, mountaingym18@gmail. I'd love to hear your stories, and I might just put you on the podcast. So look forward to seeing you one of these days up at your cabin, Jamie, and meeting
there.
Troy. It'll be fun.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay. Thanks for being with us. And until next time, we'll talk again.
Thank you so much.
So to all of you, always looking for great stories, always looking for great encounters. If you have anyone that you know that you think would be a good guest, let me know. And Jim and Jamie, I really appreciate both of you being on tonight. I love sharing people with you guys, people that I meet who I think are great people, who are very credible, have no reason to be dishonest about anything they're sharing. And I hope you agree with me. I think our guests are all very credible. If they weren't, I wouldn't put them on the show, in my opinion. So the fact that you guys are on the show means you've convinced me that you are the real deal. So until next Tuesday night, look forward to seeing you again, and keep on squatching.